So, I'm here today talking about listing your money self-care habits. So, this is going to be a little exercise that anybody can do, and it will reveal what your money self-care habits are and whether you know what they are, which is really the key point of this. So, before we dive into doing that, I will just give you a little bit of background about MoneyMind and myself and why I'm broadcasting on this topic and what we're doing here, essentially what we're doing here. So the website is moneymind.global because I couldn't get moneymind.com. It was taken in like 1996. I don't know what this person's doing with it. Oh my, but I want it, but I can't get it. So moneymind.global. And we chose that website because all of you are all over the world, and thank you so much for watching. It's such a pleasure to be able to broadcast to people that are in such different countries, in such different scenarios, in such different lifestyles, cities, countries, wherever you are. It's the same money topics that affect us all on the basic fundamental level. So the fact is that money is in all of our lives, whatever currency it may be, wherever we are. And there are a few fundamental basics that I cover in our 5 pillars of financial stability that affect all of us. And if we have these 5 pillars comfortably covered, then our financial foundations are more stable as a result. So obviously in our countries and cities, there will be different taxes, there will be different insurances, there will be different types of details that will affect us directly. But what I talk about and what we talk about at MoneyMind, the social enterprise that I have just launched for financial literacy, is that the basic fundamentals are really pretty universal. If we have our money mindsets in place, these are the 5 pillars, okay? Money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy, then our foundation is much more stable than if we don't have all of those checked off. So we have online courses that are rolling out. They're 1 hour each, and they dive into each of these topics. At the website moneymind.global, we also have free samplers where you can go and try out any of the free samplers in money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy, and see whether you have all of these checked off, right? So it will just ask you 3 questions in each of the free samplers, and it will say, do you have this covered? And if the answer is yes, then you're sorted, man. Like, you'll be fine. You will go ahead and you will make your financial life a success for you. What I've found that a lot of people have a wobbly pillar or 2, even if they're very successful people. So of course, the super successful people, they have like all of this sorted out to some degree or other. So many of them are working so much that they don't really spend much in terms of budgeting, or they're already on top of it because they started their businesses from nothing and they knew that they needed to be on top of their accounting and their budgeting and everything. So it's become a habit, right? So like Warren Buffett, I don't know that he knows that he's spending how much per day, but I do know that he's not a very extravagant spender as seen in the press, right? He does the same thing every day. And if he was to look at how much he spends in a day, he would probably be able to tell you, and he has no reason to need to know that other than it is healthy to know. And he probably grew up in a way where you knew where your money was. So for the rest of us, we'll have different money styles and personalities. We'll be savers or spenders. We will want to budget or we won't want to budget. And there's different ways that we can have all of these covered that fits our money personality. So at moneymind.global, what we focus on is knowing ourselves, our money personality, and then finding a way that works for us in these 5 pillars of money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. Because if we are very much a saver type, we may be nervous about investing. I'm not saying this is always the case, but I'm saying that I have seen it with a lot of people that I've spoken to and who have trialed or discussed these pillars with me, that they're very good at saving, but they are nervous about the risk in investing. This is just good to know about ourselves. We might be a spender personality type and be weaker on savings and budgeting, but we might actually be quite decent at making investments because we look at it as spending. So it really is up to us to figure out what we are like and know our money selves. So I founded this company and I created this social enterprise, which is kind of like a charity, but for profit, because I realized that this topic isn't really spoken about very much. And there is this massive discrepancy where we've got sort of, we grow up in a comfortable way, or in a way that, you know, we have technology, we have iPhones, we are able to access this information, we're able to be on Instagram. Okay, if you're on Instagram, you're already pretty privileged in the world. So we have this upbringing where we are using money, we have access to money, money is flowing through our lives in whatever ways it is. It may be abundant, it may be less money, it may be that we, you know, have less money in our lives but we feel abundant. Like it's really can be any type of variation of experience. But when we go through our lives, we find that there's this big gap between having and spending money and then knowing how to manage it, and then like wealthiness. And so a lot of us know how to work but not build. And we'll kind of do this in pieces. So we'll do it by sort of maybe investing a little bit here or there, um, and and then kind of just doing that long term. Like we won't diversify necessarily. We won't reach for different levels of wealth. We'll just aim to do like the collecting property or collecting like investments, and then just build on that same style that has worked for us from the beginning, without like going into like a, you know, like Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad type of thing, where you start like leveraging your properties to get other property to build a property empire. So a lot of us will just sort of stick with what we know, and it's only because we don't know any different. But many of us will, once we know differently, still choose to do it in that way, still choose to do it in that style. And that's what we want people to be able to choose to do. Whatever you want to do with your money, we want that to be your choice, not because you didn't know how to do it another way, but because you said, actually, I know that I can like buy like this many properties if I work up to it, and then leverage those against each other and then expand my property portfolio. But I don't really like owning property, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather do it like with non like in terms of property, real and um, like the tangible and intangible properties. Like we don't want to have that much real estate. We'd rather have more like digital investments or stocks, or, you know, assets in terms of like stocks and bonds and things like that, right? So we'd rather have that type of category and not have to deal with all the stuff that you have to deal with property. But I would like for people, all of us, to be able to say that is my preference, right? Or I just don't really want to have that much money. I want to have a comfortable life for ourselves. And this is the way that it can run and feed itself comfortably and stably. And that is our preference. That's what I would like for people to be able to do, have access to, and be able to choose, which is where we come to the topic of listing your money self-care habits. Okay, so what we're going to do here is just a very, very quick exercise on listing your money self-care habits. Now, that may sound a little bit obscure, but if we think of it this way, most of us can tell you yes or no whether we practice a lot or enough self-care in our daily lives for ourselves. So we would see this very typically in people who are working too hard, mothers who are giving everything to their family. And this would be felt in real life as, how much time do you spend on you? We're like recharging you, looking after you. How much time do you spend looking after yourself in a day? So if you were to look at your day, just ask about today. How much time are you going to, or have you spent today looking after yourself? And it doesn't have to be like a spa or a massage or something like that. It can be the little things like waking up in the morning and meditating for 1 minute, doing whatever it is that we do to reset ourselves in the morning, going outside and listening to a podcast on, life coaching or a topic of interest that self-educates ourselves while we're listening to our coffee. What is it that we have done today or will do today that is for us? Exercising, eating right, any of those types of things that are for us. Now, a lot of us will be able to list those things. A lot of us will not be able to list those things because there are things that we know we could, or the horrible should do, but we don't have time to do, or we don't do, just do, right? So we don't make it a priority because there's the same amount of time. We just have different priorities. If you've got a bunch of young kids, and sometimes that's just not a priority. The kids are the priority. And at some point, we will ask ourselves, look, am I the best version of myself if I am not looking after myself? Because otherwise we tend to run a bit ragged, and then start asking the question, how can I look after myself better so I have more to give to my life, my work, my family, everything like that. So I've had a lot of those conversations with people about where they're at and how they want to step into caring for themselves a little bit more so that they have more to give back to their family, having like a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, right? So I've had this conversation where they've said, okay, look, I just realized that I run myself ragged and I am less amazing as a wife, as a mother, as someone, because I'm just exhausted all the time. And so for a lot of us in different situations, oh, thanks, Nail Driver. It's cold. It suddenly got cold in Hong Kong. For a lot of us in our lives, in our different situations, we'll reach a point where we say self-care has to become part of the equation in our life, in just our general overall life. And what I'm asking today is, if you were to list the areas that you are self-care for yourself, not good English, but in your normal overall everyday life, even if you're not doing them, you'd still be able to list things that would probably be good for you. Whether that's going for a walk, taking a bath, reading a book, whatever it may be, having a lovely cup of tea. My sister loves to have a lovely cup of tea in this really specific, lovely little teacups that she has, because from her time in the UK, she developed a love of these little teacups and Alice in Wonderland type things like that, like tea party stuff. So she loves to have a really nice, relaxing cup of tea. And for her, that's really, really relaxing. So we will be able to list that about our self-care habits in our overall life. What are our self-care habits in our money life? Because just like we need to have habits to maintain our success and be the best of ourselves, or at least like a good, or like a version of ourselves that we are happy with. So we can be like the run and ragged version of ourselves, but typically we tend to want to be at least like, I'm giving it my best and that's okay. And sometimes that will just be ragged, and that is totally okay. But a lot of the time we realize that we need to have some level of input as much as we have output. We need to have some level of self-care for how much we want to give back out into the world, into our family, into our lives, right? Because otherwise it will just start to deplete and deplete and deplete. And then there's not only none left for us, but there's also none left for other people as well. So in our money life, where is our self-care? Just like in our normal life, where is our self-care? So where is your self-care today in your normal life? And where is your self-care today if you were to list your money self-habits? So this can be taking care of yourself. Like if you were to, have time for yourself in the morning, that you have like a business podcast that you listen to help with your work. Is there any time that you spend on your money, looking after yourself, educating yourself in this area? Do you curate your Instagram so that you get images come up that are educational? That's what I do with my Instagram. Do you listen to podcasts about money? I listen to Natalie Bacon's life coaching, online business, and money podcast every morning, every weekday morning. I am there making my little breakfast shake that is like this really weird blend of like green superfood and flaxseed and cinnamon and cacao powder, and it's really energizing. It's why I don't drink coffee, I think, because it's really good. It's really, really good. But I listen every morning in my morning getting ready routine to Natalie Bacon podcasts. And I know that everyone will have a different morning routine or evening routine or whatever it is that you have in your life that is like working for you. And what I also want to remind people is that this doesn't have to be a chunk of time. Because I mean, who has time for a chunk of time, right? Like in everyday life. Most of us find chunks of time very, very difficult. But our self-care habits can be throughout the day. They can be little things like getting into a taxi or getting into a car and just having a moment where you just take a deep breath to ground yourself and just smile. Do the social emotional cognition trick, which is a neuro hack. Lift your cheeks up like this, even if you're sort of semi like grimacing. If you lift your cheeks up, it engages your sort of smile muscle and it tells your brain that you are happy. This is a neuro hack that they studied. They did pencil tests. So they were testing people. I can't remember if it's in an MRI machine or whatever it is. But when I was studying my Cambridge social and emotional embodied cognition course, because I'm starting to study neuropsychology and all of these areas because interesting, right? There was a study, and you bite on a pencil, and all these participants bit on the pencil, and if they bite on the pencil, their brain areas, I've got to look into the brain areas. I've actually got a little model of a brain I'm starting to study. The brain areas will light up as showing some very like light signals of happiness. If you combine that with also saying positive things, then it reinforces your oral stimulation where your brain is hearing positive things as well as thinking that it's happy, and it will start to be able to just shift you neurologically in a direction that is more positive than whatever you were before you started doing that. They also did the study where you put a pencil under your lip. I don't know how that worked. I can't do that. And it showed, hold it like that somehow, and the brain showed unhappiness because the mouth downturn. Wow, I can really downturn my mouth like super epically. It's like Olympic epic. But but the point is that our brain registers things that our face is doing. So if we want to wake up in the morning, like I use this. Once I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm using this like every day. So every morning when I wake up, I do like a stretch. I pendiculate, which is just, stretching, obviously, and like yawning in the morning. And I say orally to stimulate waking up, good morning, and I lift my cheeks up. I actually do this in the morning because I realized I was waking up super groggy and just bleh. Like in the morning I was like, ugh. I just didn't want to be awake, that kind of grubby feeling where it's just sloughing around in the morning. And some people want to just have that grubby time before their coffee, but I don't. I really don't. I definitely want to be happy. And so I use this neuro hack where the bite on the pencil, lift the cheeks, even if the rest of my face isn't really doing anything. I'm like, right, obviously, because that's how I sleep. And then I wake up, I'm like, bleh, bleh, bleh. And then I'm like, good morning. Like I will just lift my cheeks up. Like I'm not even really smiling. I just look completely ridiculous, but it works. And since I've started doing that and developing my neurological pathways, I've started to train myself that in the morning, this triggering my neural pathways, saying good morning and stretching and doing kind of like power poses, like sort of stretching up with my arms in the air and just good morning and sort of smiling the whole time will actually make me get out of bed feeling a little bit more positive. right? So those are just some of the neuro types of psychological hacks that we'll also be talking a little bit more about in terms of how to make things easier to implement in our lives as we move forward with MoneyMind. So I can't actually remember how we got into this onto this part. But in terms of our money self-care habits, what are our listed money self-care habits and what are our personal self-care habits? Right? So even something like that with the face could be under self-care habits. I do this to improve my mood in the morning, in the day, so that I can get on with my work faster, clearer, and in a better state of mind than if I hadn't done it. It takes less than a minute. So it's something anybody can do, right? All you have to do is smile while you're lifting your arms up and saying good morning. I mean, that's not even a minute. That's like maybe less than 10 seconds. And it really makes a difference to my day. So that would be in my self-care habits. My money self-care habits. What do we do with our money self-care? Are we budgeting? Are we expense tracking? For me, as a spender who is not naturally a saver type, I find it really benefits me to expense track every day. And I have that in a little budgeting app, and it is really useful. I use an app called iExpensit. I've also heard that the app Toshl, Toshl, is quite good for people who have international assets and want to see a net worth view. So this type of tool is really great because if we use something like iExpensit or Toshl or Mint, whatever it is, we get to, even if we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by having our budget, all we need to focus on is inputting our daily expenses. That's it. What are my daily expenses? So for me, that is not a strength area. And I do have to work pretty hard to maintain this as a habit. And even though I've been doing it for absolutely ages, it is just not like habit as you would think of a habit. So it's one of those things that my brain is a little bit lazy about doing. And even though I do now do it, I do it as a habit, it's easy for me to fall out of that habit for some reason. And I don't know why, because I've been doing it for years now. So there's like, I just don't know why. I need to look into why that habit is not like stuck. But the fact is that I do input things. And I think what I would maybe need to do in order to make it a little bit more solid is do it absolutely immediately after every single spend, right? Because now sometimes if I have a string of meetings or things, then I will, then I will be able to do it after like maybe 3 meetings in a row instead of straight after each one. So if I wanted to do the habit sandwiching method, which is also another neurohack that you can use to make things easier to adopt, you sandwich something between 2 other habits. Okay, so that's the sandwiching habit method. You sandwich your habit between the new thing between 2 other established habits. So I just saw Nail Driver's comment. Thank you so much, Nail Driver. Nature does like squirrels. Blue jays pull acorns off branches instead of waiting. A single blue jay may hide, what? 3,000 to 5,000 nuts in a season. So, so people need to save with that zeal. So I can tell Nail Driver is a saver type, right? So that is a very interesting comment. So a blue jay will save up nuts, like squirrels also save up nuts. So we can see what our personalities are and then list our money self-care habits. Are we a great saver? Are we really good at investing? And we can look at our money self-care habits and ask ourselves, are we happy with that list? Is this a short list or is this like quite a long list? Like how it's essentially asking ourselves, how well do I know myself in terms of my money style? Like Nail Driver might be able to list a whole bunch of things that he knows about, they know about themselves, right? So they could be a saver. I'm guessing saver here. A saver, they know how much they have in their bank accounts. They expense track or budget. They know what budget works for them, or they know a style of budgeting that works for them. They know what type of investments they like making. They know that their investment style is in line with their risk profiling questionnaire. Like those, that is just a list from just some of the things that maybe someone like Nail Driver might know about themselves, right? Like me as a spender, I know that as a spender, my weaker areas, I self-care in the budgeting section where I make sure that I'm trying to budget and expense track because it's not as natural for me. And even if I'm not being as strict on the sort of overall budgeting, then I will still be expense tracking all the time. Like every single day, I will be listing into that expense tracking app what I'm spending in a day. And then that has monthly charts and printouts, and I'll look at those and I'll say, oh wow, I really did not need to spend that much on delivery services this month, right? as a lot of us through COVID will be saying, like, oh my gosh, how many pizzas did I eat? So I will have things like I am a spender type, and I like to save, but I also am very comfortable investing and know my risk profile is very high risk profile tolerance. So your risk profile questionnaire will be something free you can do at your bank, and I recommend everybody do it. Just like my personal opinion, but then also, financial people will also say it's good to know. It will just tell you what you need to know about your risk tolerance in terms of investing. So that's good to know for yourself, for your own reference, and about how you generally tolerate risk in your finances. So the risk profiling questionnaire, you can do at a bank. So I know that mine is like really high. And that means that because I know that I'm a spender and I also am comfortable with quite high risk tolerance, because I know that I'm not super at like just saving and stashing money, I like to have money saved and stashed, like at least 3 to 6 months emergency fund, and then more on top of that, obviously. And then I also like to take on a lot of investing. So that will be a really solid block. Like I actually invest a lot more than I save. So that is just my personality. And that is because I'm a spender. And so I like spending. I've turned it into, instead of just spending money on loads of stuff, I still buy loads of stuff, by the way. But instead of just buying loads of stuff, I realized quite early that I'd like buying loads of stuff, but I also like buying investments because there are certain brands and ETFs and things like that that I just really like. And so I realized that I could start doing that and stashing my money away in investments that are still kind of saving-y because they are more static, they are more diversified, and they are really long-term hold. So I know also about myself that I'm a really long-term hold investor. I'm not going to be day trading. I'm not going to be like going crazy on cryptocurrency markets. I'm not going to be doing any of that stuff. And I also know that I like to hedge. Like I'm going to go into certain areas that are new or risky with open eyes, knowing I could lose in this area, and therefore making choices that look after my own best interests in terms of my comfort levels. So I take care of myself and my comfort levels as well. So if we look at our normal self-care habits and our money personality self-care habits, how do we look after our self-care money life? How do we look after ourselves in this area? Like, what are we doing to make sure that we look after how we feel about money? Because if we are not looking after ourselves in our money life, we're gonna be stressed out about our money, because some part of our brain knows that even though we're doing some things that are natural to us, we are ignoring or maybe avoiding, or maybe like just sort of like, oh, I have a lot of savings, but I'm not investing, but I'm not going to talk about it. Like I'm just sort of going to leave it. And then sort of at some point I'll get comfortable investing. This is not advice. All of this and Money Mind, everything is just education based on my own experiences and opinions. But I do know that if you go to moneymind.global on Instagram, okay, so you follow like at moneymind.global at Instagram, you can go into the people I follow. And in the follow people, there's a whole slew of financial Instagrams. You could theoretically follow a whole bunch of them and see what these people are saying, because a lot of these people are saying not advice, just education, but what you will learn from following these people and seeing what they are saying will be so valuable, especially if it's in areas that are really relevant to you, but you have not taken the time or don't know where to start or haven't really like dived in to researching as much as you would like in this area. It's really good to socially learn and use this type of hack, micro learning hack, to be able to input information into your brain so that you can become more comfortable in areas that you might be a little bit nervous about. So just to summarize that, that little exercise again. So if you were to list your normal everyday self-care habits, you'd probably be able to list some of the things you like having a bath, having a nice cup of tea, whatever it may be. If you were to list your money self-care habits, what would they be? It's a really healthy exercise to do. Do you budget? Do you expense track? Do you love investing? Like, what is it that you know about yourself in terms of your money self-care habits? Because this is something that is helpful to know about ourselves, about our money personality. Because if we don't know this, then it is, again, just like our normal self-care area, we will find ourselves a little bit nervous, unsure, shaky, just less than what we could be, just because we don't know ourselves in this area. This can apply to any area of life, really. Do you know how you exercise? Do you know how you eat? I mean, most of us would know how we eat, but like, do you like all the things that you know about yourself? This should include a list of money self-care habits, not just, oh, I am bad with money or I spend it like this, but self-care. How do you look after yourself in your money life? If you don't have this list, make this list. If you don't have a list that you can easily think of that is topics that you look after your money life, right? Then just start making it. Start thinking about it. Start thinking, what is my money self-care? Like, and if you think, oh, it's not super, think of how you'd like it to be. What's something that you could improve? What's something that you might be really less strong at that you know would really benefit you? If, like me, it was budgeting, then all you have to do to start is expense track. And that is so much less intimidating than thinking, oh my God, I need to start budgeting and like putting in a plan and restricting myself. Just expense track for like 3 months. Do nothing else but expense track in terms of budgeting. And then you'll have numbers and you'll see the numbers. And I'll tell you that once I saw those numbers when I first started, I immediately started to autocorrect. And I realized that I now had the information to become a selective spender. And I didn't have to do any other budgeting other than looking at where that money was going by expense tracking and saying, oh, I am so not okay with having spent that much on like cakes from Starbucks. I mean, they're pretty good, but they're also not that good, but they're also pretty good. So I said, I just don't need to be spending that much money on cakes every day because I'm walking past Starbucks on my way to work. Like, why? They're making me fat. They make me a bit tired. They don't really add anything to my life. I'm just doing it out of habit. And I'm not really thinking about it because it's not actually that much. But at the end of the month, it was quite a lot, let me tell you, because I was buying like a tea, some muesli bars, and then the cake, then maybe another cake for like later. Like I was fully like greedy gutsing. It just sort of got a bit out of control. And once I tracked my expenses, it was like within weeks, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. So, but I didn't have to struggle with it. And that's the thing. If you're someone who's a bit intimidated by budgets, just start expense tracking and logging that and make that the only focus, because then you'll see stuff at the end of the month and say, oh, I feel like I don't really want to spend in that area. Like I didn't realize I was leaking money. So in the course, in the main course that we talk about in the budgeting pillar, I mean, we talk about leaking money. Are there areas in your life that you're leaking money? And you can go to moneymind.global and try out any of our free samplers to have a gauge of where you are at in terms of your money life. So if you can list some of the ways that you care about yourself and self-care in your life, having a bath, having a cup of tea, eating some chocolate, going for exercise, but you can't list your money self-care habits, you may benefit from going and trying the free samplers over at MoneyMind and seeing roughly where you are at in terms of answering those free sampler questions, just to get a gauge of where you currently are. And this is totally without judgment. Please do not apply any judgment to yourself. Where you are now is absolutely okay, even if it feels uncomfortable or stressed or horrible. You're there, and you don't need to add on extra judgment about being there. All you need to do is say, okay, this feels however it feels. I feel those things, and I would like to change them or keep them. Simple. Not, oh, why did I make these decisions? Blah, 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 blah. That is not necessary. Please do not do that. If you find yourself doing that, bring in a hero self, as I wrote in a recent blog. So you can go over to moneymind.global. So that's www.moneymind.global. You can look at our recent blog about having a hero self and making sure that you are treating yourself well. So you can go into the blog, and I need to find out what that blog is called, actually, sorry. But it was a recent blog that I wrote, and it talks about bringing in a hero self to tell yourself, I don't need to beat myself up anymore. All I need to do is take the next action step. Beating myself up, saying nasty things to myself, being judgmental does not move me forward. It doesn't. You're exactly the same place that you were like 5 seconds before you started berating yourself about that bad decision that you made. It doesn't do anything. It's like a rocking chair. You're just rocking there and not getting anywhere, right? To quote like Van Wilder, I think a movie I saw decades ago. All you need to do is ask yourself, what is my situation now? And what is one step I can take to move it forward? Do I have a list of my money self-care habits? Do I want a list of my money self-care habits? Yes or no? If it's no, next action step is go do something else. If it's yes, then you can start listing stuff. If you don't know, you can go over to the free samplers at www.moneymind.global and try them out. You can do that and see where you're at in your money life. And if you want to take the step further to really educate yourself, you can dive into our main pillars. So the first pillar that is out this month is money mindsets. So all of the topics that we're talking about are going to be related to money mindsets, how we think about and how we believe about money in our lives. Because how we think of money and what we believe about money is going to dictate money in our lives. If we believe this or that, it is going to impact how we behave. And that is really what we want to be aware of, because our beliefs impacting our actions create life, and that will create our results. And a lot of us are kind of struggling with the results we're getting. And really, our beliefs are at the end of the end of the queue of, like the dominoes. They're like the first domino back there that pushed all the other dominoes, but we're there at the end of the domino pile being like, oh my gosh, these results, I'm looking at the next few dominoes thinking, this is the reason why. The reason why you're having the results in your life right now is because of what you believe. And that actually is only like part of this equation, but what you believe causes you to take actions, causes the results in your life. That's how that fabulous trifecta works, right? And I know it's very, very simplified. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff. There's life, there's situations, everything like that. And those things, for the most part, for many of us, we cannot control. Feeling stressed, judgmental about ourselves, judgmental about other things, complaining, none of these move us forward. We only want to focus on what will move us forward and benefit our lives, because that is the only thing that will cause different results. So you can go over to www.moneymind.global to read our blogs on these topics with a list of like tips to try yourself and see if you get any benefit from them. You can try our free samplers there that are over at moneymind.global. You can try our free pillar number 1 that's launched this month, Money Mindsets. And that is 1 hour in little segments. And you can work yourself through that and see if the exercises help you to change, adapt, and adjust your money mind to help serve you better. And you can also go over to our Instagram, moneymind.global, as well, at moneymind.global, and see some of our posts there and try out the exercises that we post there that will be similar to this live broadcast topic, but slightly different and in text so that it walks you through some of the exercises, or maybe just points out different viewpoints on certain things. So thank you so much for joining for this topic. List your money self-care habits. I hope that you're able to list your money self-care habits, but if you're not, don't worry about it. It's a good insight to know. All you want to do is have the knowledge, oh, I can't list my money self-care habits, because from there, you have the information to be able to make a choice in whatever direction you want to go. And that is really what the key and our focus is, and what we want to gain from this is the knowledge to empower ourselves to decide what we want. I'm Raven, founder of financial literacy social enterprise moneymind.global. Thank you for joining, and see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.